What's up, guys? My name is Tim Ruswick, and today we're going to talk about why UI should not be an afterthought. So if you don't know, UI stands for user interface, and it basically has to do with every interface and every interaction point the player has with your game. So like a menu system, some HUD elements, some cool little items that show up, and menu system when you pause, like options, all that great stuff. And so UI, I think, is one of those things that for new game developers who are really focused on building their game and they build out the whole world and all the gameplay and all that stuff's really fun. But for a lot of developers, UI can kind of be one of those things like, it gets boring, right? Nobody really wants to do it. We don't really want to get there. But, UI happens to be one of the most important aspects in your game's design. Because guess what? Check this out. Most people are not going to play all the way through your game. Most people are not going to finish your game. Most people are going to quit after 10, 20, 30 minutes of your game. That's just how it is. You'll get any piece of data on Steam or anything like that. You'll see most people only play the first part of games and then they quit. I don't know why. That's just how it is. People lose interest. Life gets away. Whatever happens, it just happens. So if you think about it, if they're only going to play 10 minutes of your game and they see your loading screen and they see your menu and then they see your start screen and then they play your game, maybe they see your HUD, maybe they see your pause menu, they're going to be interacting a lot with your UI. They're going to be seeing a lot of your UI in their first few minutes of gameplay. And if they're only going to play the game 10 minutes, they could really spend half of that time looking at or interacting with UI. And so if that experience is frustrating for them, that is something that's really going to hold your game back. Like, it's really going to stop people from interacting with the game. And actually, sometimes it can cause people to quit. There have been a couple games that I played with for Feedback Friday where, for whatever reason, I just can't figure out how stuff works, or stuff doesn't make sense, or it's unintuitive, or I got to hit this option, then go to sound, then mess with settings, or, there's all kinds of stuff that can just be frustrating to players. And the important part here is not to, make something fancy or make something cool or make something interesting. The important part is to make it functional. And yeah, polish and beauty help, right? Like, who doesn't like to look at something that's beautiful and looks great and all that great stuff? But no one is going to admire the beauty of a UI and be happy with it if it's not functional, right? Like, UI is one of those things that actually gets ignored if it's good, but it gets complained about if it's bad. It's kind of like controls, right? Like, nobody really says, oh, this game has such good controls, but they say, holy shit, this game has horrible controls if it's bad. It's one of those things, and you're not going to get rewarded for it. People are not going to pat you on the back for a great UI. Sometimes very few people that are super into that sort of thing might say something, but the general public is not even going to mention it. And I say that playing a lot of different games with really good UIs. We had a whole discussion about FTL and the UI. Even though it's a little bit of a complex UI, it's a good UI. Same thing with their new game, Into the Breach. That UI is very technically complex to build, but they built it because it was important. And my message today is basically just don't let that be an afterthought. Don't throw the UI into your game. Don't just put stuff there because you think it needs to be there. Really think through the experience, right? The whole user experience. UX is a little bit different than UI. Not the same thing, but they interwork with each other. Think through the experience and determine what UI you need, what UI you don't, where you need a UI, what elements you need, right? I'm going through this whole design challenge right now with my game. I'm trying to show lists of items. I'm trying to show inventory, but it needs to be really simple, and it needs to work with a controller, potentially a touchscreen. So there's a lot of elements like that you can kind of work, that you can figure out, things that you can figure out if you just put a little thought into it ahead of time, right? Like, if I were to go and publish a game on PC and it used a bunch of keyboard keys and a mouse, and my whole UI is built around that, it's going to be really difficult for me to port that game to a controller console that uses a controller, or to a touchscreen, because touchscreen is a little bit easier to port the mouse to, but a controller can be really difficult to port from mouse control, right? So like thinking through this and say, okay, maybe this is stuff that I should build specifically for the type of platform, specifically for the control mechanism, specifically for the, screen that they're going to use, or whatever it is. Thinking through that stuff just a little bit, not just tacking it on your game, can really, really, really help you go far. And it's just, I don't have any design tips for UI. Maybe that'll be a different video, but I just wanted to remind you guys that UI is not one of those afterthoughts. It's not one of those things that you just tack onto the game when you're almost done with it. It needs to be part of the design. It needs to really work well with everything else that you have in your game. And so that's what I want to leave you with. If you found this useful, or you got any questions on this, leave them down below. Once again, my name is Tim Ruswick, and I'll see you again tomorrow.